Kathleen McNamee of ESPN joins us on the line to look ahead to this game. Good morning to you, Kathleen.
Morning, guys.
We'd Lisa Fallon on during the week, and she was talking about this as being the most important game of all time for Ireland. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, just slightly. I mean, we're so close to getting this qualification. A draw or a win tonight is all we need to get into the playoffs, which would be a massive achievement for this team. I think any Ireland team going into this sort of qualification, if they looked at 6 games and said we've won 4, drawn 1 and only lost 1 at this point, would be quite happy with themselves. So tonight is massive, and I think the team really do understand that. And I think the fact that we do have that 3-2 win against Ukraine ourselves, and then also the performance against Germany will really steel them for this match tonight.
Yeah, and it does feel that like that group, particularly under this manager, have kicked on in a way over the last couple of years, that being in a position where they're so close to qualifying for this thing, and the ramifications of the whole thing would be that, having never qualified for a major tournament before, that a draw tonight should be enough for second spot, which may be even enough to take one of the automatic 3 qualification places from across the groups, but certainly good enough for the playoffs. But that the group have matured enough to the point, Kathleen, that and I say deliberately under this manager as well, to the point that it's not good enough to be here anymore, that actually they need to go out tonight and see it through.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've seen that throughout the qualifying campaign. You know, there's been a very clear aim of the group that, you know, goals matter, goal difference matters. We know the games that we're going to win and the ones that we possibly aren't going to win. And I think, especially with the Germany game, we saw that Vera Power was saying beforehand, I know this isn't the sort of team that we are going to beat, but this is what I want to do. This is how I have the team set up. And sometimes you don't always get managers admitting that sort of thing, so they might not necessarily want to. So I think it shows a strength of character in the side that they know where they're at. And you look at the sort of scores and goals that the other teams were putting past Germany, and we only conceded 3. So I think it'll give them a lot of hope going into tonight. All the girls said it during the week, you know, this is a very different setup to the last time we played Ukraine. I think they underestimated us a lot the last time, whereas now they have our measure and we have their measure. And it's going to be a case of going out and changing the way that we play, because obviously we can't play the way we did against Germany or against the way we did against Ukraine in the second half of the last game. In the last game, we absolutely fell apart, whereas against Germany in the second half, we finally came together. So I think what Vera Power will be looking from the squad tonight is that more of a consistency over the full 2 halves, rather than this thing of doing very well in the first half and then having to scramble in the second, or letting in a load of goals and then having to scramble again in the second. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the team sets up. Will they be more attack minded? Are they thinking, yes, let's get the goals, let's get our goal difference up, so that when we go into the playoffs, or maybe not even, maybe we'll win it and then we won't have to go to the playoffs, we're in the best position.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, you mentioned Germany and the 3-0 win, obviously the last day, which in itself was nearly a result, wasn't it, given what they've done to other teams across the group. On Vera Power, Kathleen, what is it that you're seeing that she's brought to the party? Like, she's been spoken about, her respect for her as a manager is growing almost every game that goes past. But what is it that she's brought to the party beyond the previous regime in terms of the style of play or the confidence that she's giving to the players?
I really think it is a lot down more to the confidence and the style of play she has brought to the team. You know, we have had a very talented team for a long time, but I think we've been missing that extra step, that extra appreciation of what we can actually achieve. And I think she's very straight talking. You know, you listen to her in press conferences or when she gives interviews, and she doesn't overhype, but she doesn't underhype either. And I think she's the sort of manager that lays out a challenge to her team and says, this is what I think you're capable of, now show me you are. And I think maybe that element was missing slightly for us in recent years. You know, you look at the likes of Katie McCabe, Denise O'Sullivan, these are people who are playing with some of the top players in the world. And I think Vera Power's come in, like, she appreciates that and she knows how to set the team up around those sort of players. And I also just think she doesn't let a lot of outside influences come into like her talking about the game. You know, obviously as the manager of a women's team, she's asked a lot about equality. She's asked a lot about things like equal pay, the charter flight. but she doesn't really let her answers of those distract from the game in front of her. And I've really enjoyed seeing that, and I've enjoyed listening to her, because I think she's the sort of person that quietly works away and does her job without necessarily making a massive deal out of it.
It's interesting as well when you listen to Katie McCabe talk about what they've worked on, Kathleen. She says that since the first game they played against Ukraine, that eliminating mistakes has been one of the things that they've worked on. Has that been something you've seen an improvement in over the last couple of games?
I think it has and it hasn't. I think if you look at the Germany game, there was the couple of the goals that they did get were faults of ours. You know, the first one came from a set piece, something that we would normally think we're quite good at defending. And I think the team were disappointed to have let that in, especially so early on. And there were a couple of mistakes at the back that could have led to like a lot more trouble for us if Germany had their shooting boots on a bit more. So I think it definitely has improved, but there's still a long way to go to get us to the sort of place where the ball isn't going to the back and we're not freaking out or worrying. I think the reassuring thing about the second half in the Germany game was the fact that we were literally being pressed for the full game, but especially for those 45. You know, there wasn't much opportunity for us to attack, because literally everyone was behind the ball. And I think if you can sustain that sort of pressure against a team like Germany, then it definitely shows that we are making a lot of progress.
Is there a world in which that becomes part of tonight's encounter, or this evening's encounter as well, where it becomes obvious that Ukraine are on top early on and coming away with a 0-0 draw would be a good outcome? Is that too negative a prediction for how tonight might go?
I don't think it's too negative. Like, I think it's always important to consider, but from the way that Pau has set up in the past, I don't know if she's playing for 0-0 draws. I think the goal differences matter so much in these qualifying that getting a couple on the board is almost as important as conceding one. So I think she will set up for more of an attack. I mean, it's a great way to do it as well. You look at the goal that Katie McCabe scored at the weekend. You know, we want the players to be in that sort of mood where they're looking to score the goals rather than going straight just for the 0-0. But I think if it gets to a situation where they look dangerous, it's nice to know that we can hold out for that 0-0. But I think it's a risky move.
The fear is that they, as you say, possibly underestimated Ireland last time out. And you look at their results since they've hammered Greece 4-0. Their manager, Natalia Zinchenko, says Ireland have done well in the campaign, but I'm convinced that we have identified their weaknesses by the time we meet them. There's one thing that's not going to happen today, and Ukraine are not going to underestimate Ireland twice. But you look at some of the comments, and there's definitely an air of confidence about Ukraine, where they're looking at third seeds Ireland and saying to themselves, we should be beating these guys.
They definitely should. And I mean, that's why everyone was so surprised when they didn't beat us in the last game. So I think I mean, Vera Power said it herself, you know, she's looking at sort of people like Apashenko, who is very good at just like linking everyone together. They also have Kozlova, who's very good at like finding those little spaces and taking free kicks, you know, just kind of like the Katie McCabe on the other side of the team. And then also you have people like Olivia Chuk, who plays with Atletico Madrid, who in and of herself, she knows how to get her goals, she knows how to find them. So I think they will definitely be set up for us, and they will have watched us play Germany. And I mean, they played them twice and lost 8-0 both times. So they will know that we are a credible threat, and they will be very ready to come up against that. But I think that we're a team that's going into this with a lot of confidence. Besides the fact that, you know, we have had quite a good run of results. Like individually, a lot of the players are doing very well at the moment. We said Katie McCabe scored at the weekend. You had Denise O'Sullivan. She also was in the WSL team of the week. You know, people like Amber Barrett scored 3 goals in 3 games. So Rihanna Jarrett she had a great game against Ukraine the last time out and is kind of looking to recreate that. So I think there's a lot to look forward to this evening, especially because I think Ukraine, while they're ready for this, they are possibly going to allow us a bit more space than we had against Germany. We were constantly being caught defending, and then whenever we did manage to get the ball up the pitch, we didn't have anyone there to actually head it towards goal. So I think if we can get that Connolly, McCabe, and Denise O'Sullivan link up going in the midfield, I think there's like really a possibility that we could do good things this evening.
Is your sense as well that on a club level, the Irish players would be trending in a better direction than, say, the Ukraine players at club level? Like you mentioned, the Atletico Madrid star who's up front for Ukraine this evening. Like, is it better for us to have a whole pile of people playing their trades in the UK rather than Premier Division players? Is there a sense that we're at a very good level here in the English league?
Yeah, I mean, it's a controversial one because there is this thing that people would say generally the Spanish division is a lot more skillful in many ways than the English one, but because the English one is slightly better funded, it's closer to home, we hear a bit more about the stars there. But I think you can't look at, like, Katie McCabe is playing with Miedema, who broke the all-time scoring record at the weekend. You know, Denise O'Sullivan is underneath Hope Powell, a complete legend at Brighton. You know, they're all playing with incredible teams and incredible managers heading them up. So I think it is good. This is something I've said before, that I'm very much of the opinion that having players across as many diverse leagues probably suits teams better, because you get that experience of playing against different people, different styles. You know, we talked about it the last time when we played Germany, and the fact that we had a couple of players on the team who had plays the Germans like week in, week out in the league, which I think is good, because it's something maybe that we haven't always had in the men's side, where there is quite a focus on League of Ireland and the Premier League and Championship. So like all very English, Irish leagues. So I think we are very fortunate, and I think sometimes we do underestimate the players that we actually do have in the squad, and the range of talent that comes from them being spread across different places.
Yeah, well, it's 5 o'clock start tonight, Irish time, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. What's your expectation, Kathleen? Are we going to get it done?
I think we are. I feel like a 2-1 win is my prediction at the moment, and I'm hoping that I don't fully jinx it for us. But I think that, like, the team's in a good place. Motivation seems high, and I think Vera Power is the sort of person who will keep it steady. She won't let the girls get ahead of themselves and get over the top, and they'll just have to go out and make sure they win it.
Yeah, you were watching Dundalk, I think, last night as well. I'm speaking of nearly getting it done. Obviously, very unfortunate at the end. What were your thoughts on Dundalk's opening game in the Europa League last night?
Yeah, I think there was one point Dundalk were winning and Arsenal were losing, and I was like, this is about to get very interesting as a group. I think they performed probably as well as they could have hoped for. The second half was obviously incredibly disappointing, but I think it just showed the level that you have to sustain in European football. You know, in the first half they came out, they were looking for the goals. I think the disallowed goal was very unfortunate. The referees at the time didn't even really seem to know why they had disallowed it. So I think there was a lot of like niggly things in the background that possibly played into just general attitude as well. You know, having Filippo in the stands and having the goal disallowed and not really being sure why. It does unsettle the team. And I think it was disappointing to see them come out in the second half and just not have any answer to the increased pressure that Mold put on them. But I also don't think that anyone could have expected much more than what was offered. I think if you look at their run into games, you know, it's Waterford the weekend and then they've Arsenal next week, and they've been playing very consistently in the League of Ireland. Keeping your fitness up and the strength, and then being expected to go into a European match like that, you know, it's tough for a team like that. And I think they made a good show. I think Gary Rogers said after the game that, you know, we weren't overawed, and I think that was a very good analysis of what they were. You know, they weren't overawed by their opponents. They went out, they did the job that had to be done, and unfortunately they just weren't good enough at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, it's great to be talking about an Irish team in the Europa League and an Irish team at the brink of the Euros as well. Kathleen, thanks a million this morning.
Thanks, lads.